Better at Home, a project of the Atlanta Scholars Kollel.
Let us work on a new character. And this time we're going to work on the idea of conquering anger, right? And this reminds me of the story I told all the way back at the beginning of this program about how I was with my friend Adam in the parking lot and someone did something nasty and he just sort of laughed it off and I was ready to go, you know. And anger is unpleasant. You know, it's unpleasant. And it's unproductive. And in most cases. I mean, I guess, you know, Maimonides, as you'll see on the sheet, Maimonides says anger is appropriate, you know, in very serious situations. If someone's committing a genocide, you should probably get upset. But let's talk about where it comes from and how to work on it. So I think, you know, the reality is we all have heard about the concept that we have a system in our body that responds to threat, known as fight or flight, right? That your body, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, one is for this basic basic daily life, and then there's one kicks in when things are getting a little scary, and you know your digestive system shuts down for a little bit because it's got to give energy somewhere else, and you got to get fight or flight going, and your brain has to decide. And perhaps we have developed throughout our lives a sense that sometimes fight is productive. I mean, certainly if you're walking through a jungle and there's a tiger, maybe it's time to fight. Probably better flight, but you know, maybe. But even in daily life, someone's cutting us off on the highway. Someone's in the express line at the store with 16 items when I'm in a rush. You know, someone on Facebook or Twitter disagrees with me. Disagrees with me. Man, got to unfriend them right away, you know, right? Anger. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think first of all, we have a sense that anger is something that happens. It's fight or flight. It just started. It happened. I can't control that. You know, a big part of this whole Musser idea is that these things that we feel as emotions and reflexes are not. You can change yourself to not have that reflex and not have that response. Right? You just practice. You work at it. Part of it is cognitive. Part of it is just getting used to it. I remember once hearing a story from Rabbi Noach Weinberg. He said, you know, a guy was telling him how, you know, people cut me off. It gets me so angry. So he says, okay, imagine the following scenario. Someone cuts you off on the highway. You know, and you're honking at them. You're really mad. And, you know, you end up getting off at the same exit. And you pull off to the side, and you're honking, and they get out, and you get out, and you're about to, and up, out of the car comes someone who's 6'10", 340 pounds, and full of muscle. I mean, you're angry, but you're probably going to act not angry right now. Because it's not productive. It's counterproductive. So the fact that I can or cannot act angry is one thing. Whether I feel angry inside is another. But that means I can control whether I act angry. I think a big part of controlling anger is thinking about it as to whether it's productive or counterproductive. Besides for the fact that I don't feel good when I'm angry, is it really productive? You know, there's a work, the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch was written to elaborate on all of the 613 commandments. He actually writes in his introduction that he wrote it because he saw kids were bored on Shabbat, running around being wild in the streets. He wants to give them something productive to do. Here's a nice little, I guess it was the first leader's guide for Shabbat afternoon groups. But it was written by such a great sage that it has become a standard of Jewish scholarship. And so he writes in there when he discusses the concept of responding to insults, which is itself really a worthwhile discussion. He says that if you think about it, you know, when you're responding to someone who's really being nasty to you, he says if you have to respond, wouldn't you be better off responding in a calm, relaxed voice? Because if your concept is, I have to respond to this person, look at all these onlookers, this person is debasing me and making fun of me, and I gotta be, oh yeah, what about you? He says, if you think about it, if you're in such a situation and your response is calmer, like, I'm really sorry you feel that way, I hope you don't, hope it doesn't hurt you that I am who I am, and you just calm. Who's going to look better? If you're worried about how I'm going to look coming out of this with all the onlookers, you could either yell at each other and they just see two people, you low life, you scumbag, you. Or they could see one person screaming and losing their temper, one person being calm and saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. I hope we can get back together at some point and make it right. And who's going to look good, right? It's tactical. It's very tactical. But your body says, get angry, Think about it. You're at a rental car counter or your returns counter. You can get angry. What are you doing? Or you can say, I totally understand. Your job is very hard here. It's a rough day. You're on your feet all day, and I understand why it's challenging to help me. But if there's any way you can help me, who's more likely to help you, right? But you get angry. Gee, your body's like, oh. So one of the ways of addressing anger is it's not productive. It's counterproductive. In fact, there's a story about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who himself, besides for being a great halachic sage, was really a Musar master. And there are many stories of him overcoming, not getting angry and really having astounding self-control. But there's a story, he was one of the greatest sages of the past generation, and he was brought a lot of complex and difficult questions. And he had to answer them even if they were controversial. And he took some positions that not everyone liked. And there's a story about how he particularly was addressing the question of surrogate motherhood and artificial insemination, and what about a Jewish mom taking fertilization from a non-Jewish man? Will that mean that there's something wrong with the child? Can she go to just a sperm bank and get a non-Jewish father donor? And he said it was okay. He said it was, the mother's Jewish, the baby's Jewish, and it's not a problem. Now, he said this at a time, in the 60s where there was Holocaust survivors, and he believed, halacha is halacha, Judaism is Judaism, and Torah is Torah, and if that's what the law is, that's what the law is, and I'm not going to change it. But there was a rabbi who was a survivor of the Holocaust, who lost everything, and was just so offended. Like, a person could be getting their donor from a Nazi, And so he took it upon himself to write a book whose whole purpose was to refute everything Rabbi Feinstein writes. Rabbi Feinstein wrote a book, Igros Moshe, The Letters of Moshe. His book was called A Refutation, a Response to the Letters. That's the whole point of his letters. And he tried to market his book, and at some point, whenever Moshe's confidants or relatives said to him, you want to write a response to this guy? You could shred everything he's saying because you're a bigger scholar. Rabbi Feinstein said, why? We'll just bring more attention to it. It is what it is. He doesn't like me, he doesn't like me. There are many examples of Rabbi Feinstein treating his oppressors nicely. Treating his oppressors nicely. People who wrote against this particular issue brought up a lot of people who were mad at him. And one guy wrote an open op-ed, calling him all sorts of things. And a few years later, this man needed some sort of recommendation for some legal case. And Rabbi Feinstein wrote the letter for him. Wasn't he nasty to you? Yeah, what's it got to do with it? Got to help a person out. See, here we're merging anger and giving. You see that? Giving to someone who you don't even like. That's black belt giving, right? So the reality is we need to think about what anger is doing. And where is it coming from? Is it actually productive? Does it get us what we want? Where is it coming from? Why is it happening? Again, this is the idea of putting yourself in a position where you feel anger, think about what your feelings are of why you feel you need to feel anger, and sort of redirect. What happens if I don't? Some people, if you're the kind of person who raises your voice throughout the day, at your children, coworkers, whatever it is, take on a certain span of time when you will not raise your voice, with the exception of an emergency. If the car's coming at somebody, say, "Hey, get out of the way!" Right? Other than an emergency, you won't raise your voice at all. You won't even speak in an annoyed tone. Can you do that? Can you take it upon yourself for an hour or two to not even speak in an annoyed tone at all? No matter what happens. And whatever happens, you'll deal with it in a non-annoyed tone. Now, for some people, they say, "Yeah, I never do." Okay, then that's not your challenge, right? We live in a time when, boy, oh boy, it's a world out there, man, with the pandemic and politics, and it's just a lot going on. And I don't recall a time of bitter social media fighting as this. Of course, social media itself sort of lends itself to kind of like nasty fighting, but people just going at each other. People who are friends. "You have to unfriend me," or "I'm going to unfriend you. I want nothing to do with you if you have that political opinion." It's scary. Are we able to disagree civilly? Are we? You had someone who's a friend. Why are they your friend? Because there's many good things about them. They're a kind person. They're a caring person. So they have a Meshuggah belief. People have Meshuggah beliefs. It's true, right? You'll see on the sheet here about developing, resistance to anger. One approach is go to a website or a blog that writes about politics from the exact opposite position as you, and read an article. You're gonna feel anger, but stay calm. What about engaging someone in social media about an issue you feel very strongly about in a very civil manner? It's very hard to do. Say, "I totally understand why you feel that way, and I totally get why this scares you. I don't feel it's as severe as you think for the following reasons, but I respect the fact that it bothers you." Can we do that? Is that allowed? Don't I have to say, "You're sick and it's all fake news and I'm unfriending you if you think that"? Is that what we're doing? It's just, we're tense, we're stressed. It's harder than usual. In this past week's Parsha, Moshe comes to the Jews in Egypt, and he's telling them, "Hey guys, we're getting out of Egypt." And the verse says, "And they didn't pay any attention to Moses from shortness of breath and the hard work." They were just so stressed, like, "Yeah, whatever, dude, I can't listen right now." I think particularly now when we're stressed and overworked and pandemic and all the politics is just insane, we default to anger. Look, there's no perfect solution, but if we as people can work on ourselves and think, again, remember the method. Pick something to put yourself in a position to have to work on this issue. Now, by the way, some of these things may come naturally. You may say, "Rabbi Freitag, I don't need to come up with a particular challenge for anger. I have a coworker who is so annoying that when I get to work, this person will provide me as much practice as I need for working on anger. It's fantastic." In that case, you're just a lucky person there. God is providing you the fodder and the opportunity to be a great person, right? But again, the way you do this is you find those experiences, those times, those scenarios where you have to work. Listen to the voice. The reason I need to respond angrily is... Why? Why? Do you really? Is it actually more productive? Is it going to make me happier? What is the value of feeling angry here, right? And the more you think about it, the more you process it, the more you'll have the ability to sort of challenge it and change it going forward. Listen, I really hope this series has been productive, helpful. And remember, this is a tiny little taste of what it means to grow as a person. If you have a character that you want to work on and grow on, take some time, a year, 4 years, 10 years, and watch the transformation and enjoy the transformation, right? And be a happier person, a healthier person, and a better person. We can do it. You don't need to be in a specific place physically. You can do this anywhere and at any time. And this is the greatest thing. that the greatest gift that we can be given. There's many things out there that we cannot achieve because we're simply not capable of. Rabbi Freitag, how could you say that? Well, I'll give you an example. I currently, no matter how hard I try, could not make it into the NBA. I mean, maybe you have faith in me, but I don't. Right? There's a lot of things that people try to achieve and they don't achieve. Some people want to be a world famous actor, and they spend years in Hollywood and they never make it. Right? But here's something that everyone can achieve. Judaism gives us the gift of an opportunity to achieve things that nothing can stop us. No matter how rich or how poor, how strong or how weak, you can change as a person and be a better person. And you can do it anywhere at any time. It's fantastic. And as you develop these character strengths, you feel good, you feel happy. So take advantage of the gift of our tradition. All of these things I've been telling you are distilled from teachings of the Talmud and from the Mishnah. Take the time to find those sources. Find Musar works. Find Musar teachings. And see how great you can be. As the Army used to say, be all you can be. Well, we came up with that first. See you next time.